live on Freedom TV channel. Our time, the main news at this hour. In the studio, Oleg Borisov. Hello. Russia launched 136 drones at Ukraine overnight into Thursday. About 80 of them were Shaheds. This was reported by the Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Ukrainian air defenders neutralized 106 Russian drones in the north, south, and east of the country. Hits were recorded at 16 locations. In 3 more places, debris from downed drones fell. Last night, the Russian Federation once again attacked energy facilities in several regions of Ukraine. This was reported by Ukrenergo. Residents of parts of the Dnipropetrovsk region were left without power. Energy workers are doing everything possible to repair the damaged equipment as quickly as possible. Due to previous Russian attacks, electricity consumption has been restricted in all regions of Ukraine. Dnipro was hit by Russian drones. A food warehouse in the city caught fire, according to local authorities. The fire has already been extinguished and there were no casualties. Meanwhile, 3 people were injured as a result of Russian drone strikes on Pavlohrad and the surrounding area. One of them is in serious condition. Infrastructure was also damaged. The Russians attacked the Sinelnikova district with glide bombs and drones. A farm caught fire in one of the communities. Animals died there. Administrative buildings and power lines were destroyed. Nikopol and 4 communities in the district were also hit by Russian drones, artillery, and Grad rockets. 1 person was killed and another injured in Sumy region due to Russian shelling. Russian Federation troops shelled 37 settlements in the region over the past day. Frontline areas of Kyiv region also came under Russian attack. 6 towns and villages were affected there, but there were no deaths or injuries. Russian forces carried out more than 560 strikes on Zaporizhzhia region over the past day. 16 towns and villages in the region came under fire, according to local authorities. Russian Federation troops launched 10 airstrikes, attacked with drones, and shelled with artillery and multiple rocket launchers. Meanwhile, evacuations of people from frontline areas of Zaporizhzhia region continue. They're forced to leave their homes because of constant Russian shelling. People are also leaving Huliaipol. The Russians are shelling the city with artillery, launching guided bombs, and Russian drones are constantly flying over the streets. More on how the rescue operations are carried out in our next report. The evacuation convoy arrived in Huliaipol before dawn. The departure was arranged in advance, so it only takes a few minutes to get ready.
They're shooting, but we've gotten used to it. They're shooting, but we've gotten used to it. Yesterday, a car was burned here. Beth?
Russian troops are constantly increasing their shelling of residential neighborhoods. That's why staying in the city is an unjustifiable risk. A few minutes to say goodbye to their home, and then they're on their way.
Why is it that we have to run from our own home?
Police and volunteer vehicles are gathering everyone who decided to leave. In dangerous areas, we have to stop so scouts can check if there are any Russian drones ahead that could attack the convoy. Right now, they're inspected.
Right now, they're surveying this area so we can continue on for the safe evacuation of civilians.
Fortunately, we made it to a safe area without any incidents. They managed to evacuate 34 residents of Huliaipol. Most of them were pensioners and people with limited mobility who couldn't have left on their own.
You can see how painfully people are parting with their homes, how hard it is for them to leave. The police worked very smoothly, very quickly, and efficiently. They took people out in several trips. Volunteers helped, as did the military, who covered the skies.
In Zaporizhzhia, the evacuees were provided with housing. Some are staying with relatives. As of today, almost 400 residents remain in Huliaipol. The police say they are ready to help all of them leave for safer areas. Oleg Protekin, Boris Yakovenko reporting from Zaporizhzhia for the Freedom TV channels. In the morning, Russian forces shelled Kherson. A 17-year-old girl was injured. A Russian shell hit the house where she was at the time, according to the regional military administration. The victim of the Russian shelling suffered a blast injury, a concussion, and an acute stress reaction. The Kherson resident has already been taken to the hospital. 22 people may still be trapped under the rubble after a Russian missile strike on an apartment building in Ternopil. This was reported by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. According to him, emergency services worked at the scene all night and the operation is still ongoing. More than 230 rescuers from 9 regions of Ukraine were involved in the operation. Let me remind you, yesterday morning the Russians struck the city with an X-101 missile. 2 residential apartment buildings were damaged, and at least 26 people were killed. Among them were 3 children. About 100 people were injured. A ceasefire in Ukraine should be the first step toward lasting peace. This was stated by UN Secretary-General António Guterres. He strongly condemned yet another Russian strike on Ukraine, which killed dozens of people, including children. All of this once again underscores the urgent need for a complete, immediate, and unconditional ceasefire as the first step toward a just, comprehensive, and lasting peace that fully upholds the sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of Ukraine. António Guterres, UN Secretary-General, on the social network X. In order to bring an end to the war unleashed by the Russian Federation against Ukraine, both sides must make concessions. This was stated by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. According to him, that is why the United States is developing a list of potential ideas for ending the war based on proposals from both Kyiv and Moscow.
Ending the complex and deadly war that continues in Ukraine requires a broad exchange of serious and realistic ideas. And achieving a lasting peace will require both sides to agree to difficult but necessary concessions. That is exactly why we have developed and continue to develop a list of potential ideas for ending this war based on proposals from both sides of the conflict. Marco Rubio, U.S. Secretary of State, on the social network X.
Meanwhile, in the U.S. Congress, no one knew anything about the new so-called peace plan for Ukraine until it was reported in the media. This was stated by Republican Senator Lindsey Graham. In his opinion, no plan will work without significant military support for Ukraine and pressure on the Russian Federation. Graham also expressed hope that the leak of information about the plan would serve as an impetus for considering a bipartisan bill on secondary sanctions against those who actively trade with Russia. Ending Russia's war against Ukraine is one of the priorities of U.S. foreign policy. This was stated by Donald Trump's political advisor, Stephen Miller. According to him, the head of the White House continues to make ending the conflict his top priority. Miller clarified that Trump's main goal is to achieve peace in Europe, as well as to stop the killing and destruction of innocent people. At the same time, the advisor to the American president declined to comment on the new so-called U.S. peace plan, which had previously been reported by the media. Any peace plans must take into account the positions of Ukraine and the European Union. Otherwise, it will not be possible to end the hostilities. This was stated by the EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Kaja Kallas. According to her, Putin could put an end to this war immediately, but he refuses to make any concessions.
To end the war, it is necessary for Ukrainians and Europeans to also agree to these plans. Of course, Putin could end this war right away if he simply stopped bombing civilians and killing people. But we do not see any concessions from Russia. We welcome all meaningful efforts to end this war. But as we have already said, peace must be just and long-lasting. This also means that both Ukrainians and Europeans have agreed to it.
The Kremlin's subversive activities in Europe point to a very dangerous phase of escalation. This was stated by Lithuania's foreign minister, Kęstutis Budrys. He strongly condemned the sabotage on the railway in Poland, but emphasized that the scale of Moscow's subversive activities is not limited to Eastern European countries. Russia is carrying them out in other parts of continental Europe as well.
We're talking about a very dangerous phase of escalation, and we must take it very seriously, because we're just minutes away from a large number of casualties. If these operations and the sabotage that was carried out in Poland had been successful, we would be talking in a different context, with people having died as a result. Kęstutis Budrys, Lithuania's Minister of Foreign Affairs, in an interview with Politico.
Ukraine has asked the Vatican to officially formalize its role in returning children abducted by Russia. This was reported by Deputy Head of the President's Office, Irina Vereshchuk. Volodymyr Zelensky wrote about this in a letter to Pope Leo XIV on the eve of the pontiff's audience with a delegation of Ukrainians returned from Russia. Kyiv hopes that the Holy See will act as a mediator or a platform through which the return of civilians can be discussed with Russia. As soon as the process is formalized, the Russians will be forced to respond. Today, November 20th, the world celebrates Universal Children's Day. Ukraine's First Lady Olena Zelenska congratulated everyone on this holiday and reminded us of the importance of protecting children's rights. She emphasized that despite the full-scale Russian invasion, Ukraine has cared for and continues to care for its children.
This is very important to us because every day the Russian aggressor kills and injures our children, and protecting them is our most important mission. Even during the defense, we try to provide our children with education, care, childhood, and development. Children not only shape our future, they determine what our world is like today.
Subscribe to UATV English and stay updated on the most important events, top news from Ukraine and all over the world, in-depth analysis, exclusive reports and interviews, all on hand in our channel. Join our community of viewers and stay tuned.